My Journey from Doubt to Faith by Dr. Mustafa Mahmoud. Chapter 1. God. God. That was from a long time ago. I do not remember it well. Perhaps I was between 13 and 14 years old, or maybe even earlier, at the dawn of adolescence. It was when I began to question in rebellion. You say that God created the world because every creature must have a creator, every artifact an artisan, and every existence an originator. We believed and had faith. Then tell me, who created God, or did he come into being by himself? If it is valid in your conception for this to happen, then why is it not also valid in your conception for the world to have come into being by itself, without a creator, and thus the problem would be resolved? I used to say this, and the faces around me would turn pale, tongues would lash out, showering me with curses, and fists would race towards me from right and left. Those with pure hearts would seek forgiveness for me and pray for my guidance. The rigidly dogmatic would disavow me, and the rebels around me would listen. Then we would plunge together into an endless argument which only ceased to begin again and began only to continue endlessly. In those days the first truth was hidden from me behind all that argument. That my delight in my mind, which was beginning to blossom, and my admiration for my talent for speech and for dueling with arguments which I had uniquely mastered, were always the incentive, the encouragement, and the motive, and not the search for truth nor the uncovering of what is right. I rejected the worship of God because I became engrossed in the worship of myself, and was captivated by the glow of light beginning to dawn in my mind, with the awakening of consciousness and the beginning of arousal from the slumber of childhood. This was the psychological state behind the scene of argument that repeated every day. I also missed the fundamentals of logic while I was dealing with logic, and I did not realize that I was contradicting myself. I acknowledged the Creator, then I said, "And who created the Creator?" thus making him a created being at the very moment I was calling him the Creator, which is sophistry itself. Furthermore, the statement of a first cause for existence necessitates that this cause be necessary in its essence, not dependent, nor in need of any other to exist. If the cause is in need of a cause, that makes it merely one link in the chain of causality and not a first cause. These are the philosophical dimensions of the issue, which led Aristotle to posit the first cause and the prime mover of existence. These dimensions were not clear in my mind at that time, and I had not yet known who Aristotle was, nor what the first laws of logic and debate were. The matter required 30 years of immersion in books and thousands of nights of solitude, contemplation, and dialogue with the self, then re-examination, and then re-examining the re-examination, and then turning over the thought in every possible way to traverse the thorny path from God and man, to the mystery of life, to the mystery of death, to the words I write today on the path to certainty. It was not easy, because I did not wish to take the matter lightly. Had I heeded the voice of innate nature and let intuition guide me, I would have spared myself the ordeal of argument, and innate nature would have led me to God. But I came in an age where everything was complicated. They suppressed the voice of innate nature until it became a whisper, and they raised the voice of the intellect until it became arrogance and vanity. And the intellect is excused in its excess, for it sees itself standing atop a colossal pyramid of achievements. It sees itself as the bestower of civilization with all its industry, electricity, rockets, airplanes, and submarines. It sees itself as having conquered land, sea, air, water, and what lies beneath the water, so it imagined itself capable of everything, thrust itself into everything, and set itself up as a judge over what it knows and what it does not know.
The objective theory on the path led us to reject the metaphysical, to stop the burning of incense and the repetition of superstitions. Who gives us tanks and planes and takes from us religions and acts of worship? The news reaching us from Western science was dazzling, captivating our eyes. We were taking everything from the West: books, medicine, clothes, textiles, locomotives, cars, even canned food, even the pencil, the pen, and the needle. Even educational systems and literary forms of authorship, like the short story, the play, and the novel. Even the paper for newspapers. And around Western heroes and geniuses, we wove our dreams and our ideals. Around Pasteur, Marconi, Röntgen, and around Napoleon, Abraham Lincoln, Christopher Columbus, and Magellan. The West was progress, and the Arab East was backwardness, weakness, hesitation, and collapse under the feet of colonialism. It was natural for us to imagine that everything coming to us from the West was light and truth, and the way to power and salvation. I entered the Faculty of Medicine to study sciences in the English language, to study anatomy from English references, and to speak with my professors in the hospital in English, not because England was occupying the canal, but for another legitimate and just reason, that modern medical science was entirely a Western product. And what the Arabs had begun in these sciences in the days of Ibn Sina was merely rudiments that did not meet the needs of the modern age. Western scientists picked up the thread from where Ibn Sina and Arab researchers left off, then resumed the journey with developed capabilities, laboratories, and millions of pounds allocated for research. So they surpassed the early Arabs, Persians, and non-Arabs, and erected the edifice of modern medical science, physiology, anatomy, and pathology, and they truly became the reference. Along with what I learned in medical books, I learned the scientific outlook, that no judgment can be established without evidence from reality and proofs from the senses, that science begins from the sensible, the visible, and the tangible, that science itself is the process of gathering evidence and extracting laws, and that whatever does not fall under the senses in the scientific view does not exist, and that the unseen has no place in scientific judgment.
With this purely materialistic scientific mind, I began my journey into the world of belief. Despite this materialistic foundation and this starting point from the sensible, which denies everything metaphysical, I could not deny or exclude the divine power. Science presented to me a picture of the universe of extreme precision and discipline. Everything, from the leaf of a tree to the wing of a butterfly to a grain of sand, has harmony, system, and beauty. The entire universe is built according to precise geometry and laws. Everything moves by calculation, from the infinitesimally small atom to the great celestial sphere, to the sun and its planets, to the immense galaxy that contains more than 1,000 million suns, to the vast heavens, which astronomy tells us contain more than 1,000 million galaxies. All this infinite existence, from the smallest electron to the greatest celestial body, I saw as resembling a harmonious symphony, perfectly orchestrated, every movement in it measured. It was like a complete body with a soul. Science provided me with a means to conceive of God in a material way. At this stage, I imagined that God was the latent energy in the universe that organizes it into beautiful systems of living beings, inanimate matter, lands, and heavens. It is the motion that science uncovered in the atom and in protoplasm and in the celestial spheres. It is the creative, latent vitality in everything. Or, in the words of St. Thomas, it is the pure act that kept transforming in the microbe until it became human, and it still transforms and will keep transforming to infinity. Existence in this conception is limitless, infinite, for existence can only be bounded by nothingness, and nothingness is non-existent. Hence, logic compels us that existence must be unlimited, infinite, and it is invalid to ask who created the universe, since the question implies that the universe was non-existent in the beginning and then came into being. How can nothingness have an entity? Nothingness is non-existent in time and space and is invalid in discourse. It is incorrect to say it was. Thus, I made existence an ancient, eternal, everlasting event, extending in time without limits or end. And God, in this view, became the all, and we are his manifestations. God is existence, and there is no nothingness before him, for nothingness is non-existent. He is the material existence, extended eternally and perpetually without beginning or end. And thus, I established for myself a theory that is content with the existent and sees God as existence, without the need to assume the unseen and the metaphysical, and without the need to seek the imperceptible. And thereby, I fell captive to the idea of unity of existence from Indian monism and the philosophy of latent creative energy, all of which are philosophies that start from the earth, from the five senses, and do not acknowledge the metaphysical. Indian monism goes even further, abolishing the distinction between the creature and the creator. All creatures, in its view, are the very essence of the creator. In an ancient Indian prayer from the Japanese scripture, this meaning is explained in delicate verses of poetry. The god Brahma, who dwells in the heart of the world, speaks in a whisper, saying, "If the killer thinks he kills, and the killed thinks he is killed, neither of them knows the hidden ways. For I am the breast of the one who dies, the weapon of the one who kills, the wing of the one who flies. And where I am, for the one who doubts my existence, I am everything, and I am the things." It is a God resembling white light, one and simple, but containing within it the 7 colors of the spectrum. I lived for years in this Indian haze, in this Sufi marijuana. I practiced yoga, read its origins, and received its teachings at the hands of Indian masters. The idea of reincarnation dominated me for a long time, appearing in my novels like The Spider and Exit from the Coffin. Then I began to awaken to a state of dissatisfaction and lack of conviction. I admitted to myself that this idea about God contained much confusion. Once again, science was my guide, my savior, and my mentor. My immersion in science and observing the living cell under the microscope told me something else. Indian monism was a poetic Sufi expression, but it is incapable, and the confirmed truth stated by science is that there is unity in the substance, nothing more. Unity in the fabric, the primal norms and the laws. Unity in the primal matter from which everything was built. For all life, plant, animal, and human, is built from combinations of carbon with hydrogen and oxygen, and for this reason they all turn into coal upon combustion. All forms of life are based on the single cell and its multiples. And once again, we learn from astronomy, chemistry, and nuclear sciences that carbon itself and all the different elements came from the cooking of one element in the furnaces of immense stars, hydrogen. Hydrogen transforms in the furnaces of stars into helium, carbon, silicon, cobalt, nickel, iron, and so on down the list of elements, through its disintegration and recombination under immense temperatures and pressures. This traces all kinds of existence back to one substance, to a single silk thread from which the universe was detailed into different designs and patterns. The difference between one kind and another, between one creature and another, is a difference in qualitative and quantitative relations in the equation and the formative code. But the substance is one. And this is the secret of the feeling of relation, kinship, affinity, and bond of kinship between man and animal, between the wild beast and its tamer, between the nose that smells and the fragrant flower, between the eye and the beautiful sunset scenery. This is the secret of harmony and concord. That all existences are members of one family, from one Father. This absolutely does not require us to say that God is existence and that the Creator is the creature. This is an inadmissible Sufi confusion. The matter is similar to the case of a critic and connoisseur who entered an art exhibition and discovered a single artistic style among all the paintings, and discovered that they are all painted on the same canvas and with the same single set of colors. And more than this, that the style of painting is one. The natural result is that it jumps to the critic's mind that the creator of all these paintings is one, and that the painter is, for example, Picasso or Chagall or Modigliani. The unity among existence means the unity of their creator, but it absolutely does not mean that these existents themselves are the creator. The critic never says that these drawings are the painter. Indian monism is a Sufi mythical extravagance, an emotional simplification not endorsed by science nor comfortable to the mind. Rather, the contemplative, scientific view of the phenomena of creation and creatures says that there is unity among them, a unity of style, a unity of laws, a unity of structures, all of which mean that their creator is one, who did not associate any partner with him who would permit a style other than his. It also tells us that this creator is a comprehensive, all-encompassing universal mind that inspires his creatures and guides them in their journey of evolution, and equips them with the means of survival. He creates wings for the seeds of desert plants, so they can cross barren deserts searching for water and favorable conditions for germination. He supplies the mosquito egg with 2 sacs for floating, so it floats on the water the moment it is laid and does not sink. It was not possible for the mosquito to be aware of Archimedes' laws of floating and manufacture those sacs for its eggs. Rather, it is the comprehensive, all-encompassing universal mind, which is the creator, who provides every creature with the means of its life. He is a creator transcendent over his creatures, knowing what they do not know, capable of what they are incapable of, and seeing what they do not see. He is one, unique, able, knowing, all-encompassing, all-hearing, all-seeing, all-aware. And he is just, bestowing attributes, but not encompassed by attributes. The connection is always maintained between this creator, his creatures. He is closer to them than their own lifeblood. He is the innovator who masterfully played this magnificent cosmic symphony. He is the just one who established its laws and erected them upon precise, infallible norms. And thus, science presented the complete Islamic idea about God. As for the statement about the eternity of existence, because nothingness is non-existent and existence exists, that is verbal sophistry based only on playing with words. Nothingness in reality is not non-existent, and the conceptualization of nothingness in thought and mind negates its being a non-entity. Nothingness is, at most, a negation of what we know, but it is not an absolute negation equivalent to absolute obliteration. The idea of absolute nothingness is a hypothesis, like the hypothesis of the mathematical zero. It is not valid to confuse assumption with reality, nor to impose theoretical assumptions onto reality. So we say, argumentatively, that nothingness is non-existent, and consider the statement an existential premise upon which we build judgments about reality. This is an explicit contradiction and pure sophistry. Similarly, the statement that existence exists, here we find the same confusion. Existence is a mental abstraction, and the existent is a tangible reality. The word nothingness and the word existence are mental abstractions like zero and infinity. It is not valid to confuse them with tangible, concrete reality. The universe present before the senses, the universe, is not eternal. Rather, it is a created universe. It had a beginning, as evidenced by another proof from the lexicon of science, what we know as the second law of thermodynamics. This law states that heat transfers from the hot to the cold, from the higher temperature to the lower until the levels equalize and heat exchange stops.
If the universe were eternal, perpetual, without a beginning, heat exchange would have stopped in those immensely long eons available, and consequently, all forms of life would have ceased. The stars would have cooled and reached freezing temperatures and the void around them, and everything would have ended. This very law is evidence that the universe had a beginning. The minor resurrection we see around us, in the death of civilizations, the death of individuals, the death of stars, the death of animals and plants, and the finitude of moments, eras, and epochs, is another glimpse pointing us to the major resurrection that the universe must inevitably reach. True science was never contradictory to religion. Rather, it points to it and confirms its meaning. It is half science that causes the mind to fall into doubt and suspicion, especially if that mind is infatuated with itself, arrogant in its rationality, and especially when the battle rages in an age where the mind imagines it is everything. And when a person is surrounded by the glaring evidence of a material civilization where planes, spaceships, and artificial satellites proclaim at every moment, "I am matter, I am everything,"